Hey everybody, welcome to The Realness. Now, I know a few of you out there are into some super out there spiritual stuff, and this episode is kind of for you guys. I know there's a lot of you out there, and I wanted to I just want to throw you a bone, kind of just give you something that you can really just hold on to. We can talk about things like conversations with God slash Morgan Freeman and channeling aliens and just listening to the call from outer space slash the universe slash God. Vanessa Petronelli is joining me on the show today, and she is an interesting woman. I loved this conversation. It was so fun, and outside of being probably one of the more out there podcasts that I've done, we bring it back around to some really practical and grounded advice on, at the end of the day, just doing what the fuck you want to do, even if that seems a little bit out there and kind of bold, and why that's okay. But a lot of times we get in our own way, and we kind of dilute and distract ourselves from being able to listen to, dare I say, intuition, dare I say, your motherfucking heart. And that's what we're going to talk about on the show today. Vanessa's super interesting. I've probably already said that once, but I met this woman sitting across the table from her at dinner, not really knowing who she was. And in a short series of just kind of back and forth, she basically looked deep within my soul and told me some things about myself that I really needed to know, and didn't ask, but she just felt like it was a good idea, and instantly I was relatively enamored, and I had to get her on the show. So that's what you're about to jump into right now. Before we go into that, I'm going to let you know, if you're one of those people that's like, I want to make some fucking bold moves, I want to do something wild, I want to follow my heart, I want to listen to my intuition, I want some really grounded practices that can help me live a better life, well, guess what? I've got a program for you. It's called the Lifestyle Design Program, and you can head your sexy ass over to gettherealness.com and just fill out a few questions. I got a few questions there, obviously, because I want to know a little bit about you before we jump on a free call. That's right. We can just hang out, talk about your life, see what's going on, see what kind of opportunities might be staring you right in your fucking face that you might be missing. Maybe we get a little perspective shift, and maybe we can work together. Head over to gettherealness.com. And one more thing, if you love this show, share it with some friends, leave a 5-star review, and for God's sake, if you haven't subscribed yet, mash that subscribe button for me. Do it with love, do it with good vibes, and do it because you love quality content, and I love bringing that quality content right to your ear holes. That's about it. Enjoy the show with Vanessa, and we'll see you on the other side. Don't eat the mic.
Get lipstick all over it.
Hey man, there's been some really great minds that have put some energy / germs into that microphone or this one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So you were a Canadian pop star. Once upon a time, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you could say that we just on the brink of like really having more success.
Yeah.
One of the girls got pregnant.
Okay.
In the group. So
that'll
that
happen.
Kind of, was
it fizzles
the
you
beginning
out.
of the dissolution of
your
Savvy Cafe.
Savvy Cafe is what you called it? That's such a Canadian name.
We didn't come up with the name. My manager at the time produced it.
What was the Canadian pop scene like? Who was famous in the United States whenever you guys were doing that?
So I was like, what, 13, 14, 15-ish. Britney Spears, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, kind of the end of the era, close to the end of the era for Spice Girls.
Okay. And Spice Girls really changed the landscape of modern music.
They really did. And they're back on tour. I couldn't buy tickets for it because that was one of the best concerts I've ever been to.
I was for sure watched Spice World when I was when I was like 12, I think, or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went and watched it in the theaters.
So good.
It was, I don't know if I'd say it was good.
Well, it's just the Spice Girls. They're so good. No, it was not a good movie. I agree. But you just because you love them so much, you would want to go and see them.
They had something for sure.
Yeah, likability.
And they covered all the bases demographically with everybody in the group. It was way better than like a who else was going around at the time? Like a Hanson, which is just basically the same version or whatever, or NSYNC, Backstreet Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they always had the bad boy in there.
Oh,
they always had the one that had a little bit of an edge. The only one that had an edge at all. Mm-hmm. So from there, easy transition. Give us a little background on what you do now.
Yeah.
It's important. The short story.
Such a journey. So I spent 10 years in the entertainment industry back in Canada, my teens to mid 20s. And I mean, this is important to share because it kind of gives you the background of how I got into what I'm doing now.
Exactly.
Really intuitive as a kid and pretty tapped in, but didn't really look at it that way. I just thought this is my own personal experience. I have this kind of, I don't know if you would, I even described it as a gift at that time. It was just something that I had. And I would feel a lot and know a lot of things. And then at 14, this voice came in and said I was going into the entertainment industry. And it was like the voice of God coming in and instructing
the God type
voice.
Yeah.
You are going in.
It was Morgan Freeman. Is actually who it was. And Morgan Freeman was just whispering at you from behind you.
So I knew as a kid that I had like a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I had a mission. And when I received this information at like 14, I thought, wow, this must be a part of that. Like, this is a part of my purpose. I'm going to have a voice on a big level. I'm going to help people, make a positive difference, get involved in things. So literally the universe conspired all these kinds of synchronicities and events that lined me up to be in this industry, including being in this pop group, becoming an actress, and then eventually a model. So I had this really cool career. I mean, I went to school, I did all these cool things. I was always questioning reality, though, like consistently questioning why things were the way they were on this planet.
I totally, it was the same way. It was no one really, I don't feel like anybody got it, but I was like, why? All the time.
Why?
Actually, I finally wrote a friend of mine gave me good advice. Like, even if you're not going to do a TED Talk, you should write one. And I wrote that my parents' addiction had left me with the addiction of asking why. Because nothing seemed to make sense. I was like, well, why? Why? Yeah. And it was like, I have had that, and it never really, I could always see things a little bit differently, but it was through that lens of just because that's the way it is doesn't mean that's the way it has to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that was, I don't even remember when that started, but I just remember that was my way of being for so long.
I completely resonate with that.
And people make you think you're a huge pain in the ass because
of
it.
My mom always did. I mean, my parents did. I used to always ask, like, why do people go to work 5 days a week, but they're miserable with their fucking lives? Like, that's just the way it is? I don't understand. That's not a good enough answer. Yeah. That's just the way it is. It's not just the way it is. So I had some sort of, like, understanding that something was off about the way people were living their lives. And there was always this seeker inside of me to find the truth. Like, always some part of me that was like, I'm going to figure this out. There's some sort of puzzle here to why things are the way they are on this planet. So I got into conspiracy theories. Of course. Of course. Natural progression.
Then I thought the earth was flat for a while.
I went right into that rabbit hole, and it was during that time, though, like I kind of got into a little bit of a depression. This is like later in my teens, where it felt like life was very purposeless, like meaningless. Like if what this person was saying was true from what I was reading, and it very much resonated for me on the questions I had about life.
Yeah.
Like, what was the point of all of it, and what was the point? Like, what was my point in doing all of this? So basically, I kind of went into this whole depression for about 6 months, questioning life, and felt like my connection to God, to spirit, dissolved. I was brought up Catholic, never really fully resonated with, that religion, studied other religions, but nothing really sat and felt true for me. And basically, it was in this process that once I started to come out of it, I redefined what spirituality was to me and started to develop myself. So I started to get into landmark and personal growth.
Yeah.
And so I had this career, and my dream was to be in LA by 25, I, was very strong-willed, very, very dedicated. I was such a hustler. I had my first business in promotions and marketing in my early 20s, and I was working with Fiji Water and the Toronto Film Festival. I mean, I did some really cool shit. It was
Yeah.
a really exciting time in my life. But the more I was, I call it waking up to myself, waking up to more of the truth, like developing and growing, there seemed to be this gap that was forming between what I was doing and doing professionally and how I was feeling personally and spiritually. And that gap just kept getting bigger and bigger. And like intuitively I knew like this is not the path anymore, but I needed to literally get a virus all over my face to get the message like I'm not in the right
You
direction.
got a virus all over your face?
Yeah, on the cusp of going to LA. So
Okay.
at 24.
It's not the place you want to have a virus on your face.
No. Definitely
You
not.
don't want to be walking around Erewhon with like a weird looking face.
And going to agents, like I had
Yeah.
meetings, all of that. But it was like my last straw for me to really, a life coach at 23 that had been hired by one of my managers when I was singing solo, basically challenged me and said, "You're not cut out anymore. Like this is not for you." And I was like, "Fuck you. I'm gonna keep going. I've been at this for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to LA. I'm gonna do this."
It's
And
like basically half your life.
right.
Yeah.
And I really thought that was it. And it wasn't. And I'm glad that all these events occurred during this time because it got me into alignment with what I've been doing now for, 10 and a half years. And, I went through a big spiritual awakening. And I started to get into yoga and meditation. I started to have more of my intuitive and kind of like psychic abilities, mediumship abilities, channeling abilities started to come back online, but in a way that was even different from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Now it was coming out like really strong. And it was the relationship I was at in that time where, he was a big catalyst for a lot of these gifts to come online for me again, like for me to really own them. He was unfaithful. It was a really difficult partnership, and I was not at this place in, my 20s where I was strong enough to walk away. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust what I was feeling and the messages and the guidance and the dreams and the visions. And basically 2.5 years later, I was out of that relationship and everything to a T of what I had discovered was like precisely on.
Wow.
And I had gone back to school during that time and had a postgraduate, into a postgraduate program. I had my university degree, all that, and started my business that I'm now in then. It was called a different name back then, and in Canada. But literally it was, the heart of everything that I've been doing has been about people connecting to who they are and really living their authentic truth and their highest expression and being aligned and embodied and in integrity with themselves. And, obviously it's developed over the years, and I taught yoga for several years. I've worked with people from, all walks of life from all over the world. And I ended up landing in California when I met my husband, who's American. And so the dream came back, ended up in LA, now in San Diego. And I work with people in Hollywood, and I really work with people around their leadership, like learning to lead themselves into a higher level of integrity and expression and authenticity, and helping them to transition between the gap of where they are currently to where they know they're meant to be, to make bigger impact and influence.
I feel like that's a big task to take on, right? And I'm curious. We actually had this conversation, but I think it's pertinent here. Is why Hollywood, right? We look at the Hollywood from the outside, and of course, it's advantageous for media to essentially create villains and heroes out of just normal ass people that are trying to do the best that they can to sell magazines or get clicks or whatever. But we look at Hollywood and it's like, well, why invest your time there, right? When you see someone who's in Hollywood standing up for a purpose or doing whatever the fuck, usually there's always some kind of ulterior motive. Like you see a lot of that in Hollywood, and I would say a lot of bullshit in general. So why focus there with your attention?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. For starters, it started to make a lot of sense because I spent 10 years in it. I know what it's like to be in that industry. But about 5 years ago, I got a message that God voice came back in.
Morgan Freeman's back.
Morgan Freeman, yeah.
He's the
Mr.
best.
Hollywood himself came back in.
Sweet old.
And no word of a lie. Like, I'm serious. I was told you're going to bring this work into Hollywood because when people in that industry wake up and they start to really operate from integrity, from being aligned to their spirituality, to their souls, where they start to really give a shit about the impact that they have through the work that you're going to do with the people who are ready for it, there's going to be some big changes in the masses. So it really, for me, I look at it when Hollywood wakes up and they start to actually do good in the world in a bigger way. And not to say that Hollywood isn't. There are some really, really beautiful people who are gems in that industry who legitimately want to do good, who are conscious, who are doing positive things and making positive things happen. There's a lot of crap too, a lot of darkness, and I know that, and a lot more hoops to jump through, working in that industry, even doing the work that I'm doing. But it's one of the fastest ways to begin to wake up the masses as well.
For sure.
Because they have so much visibility and influence.
It's a different, I think Hollywood actually has it's a more traditional style of influence, more so than social media influence.
Totally.
Right? Like, just look at, I'm going to just bring up the obvious example, is like Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
Lady Gaga has more influence than any politician anywhere ever right now.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true.
I mean, and she seems like a pretty badass chick. I don't know.
Yeah, she does. I mean, I'd be down to work with her.
I'm a fanboy for sure. But no, I mean, it makes sense. It's a little bit more, and you see these people over and over and over again, and they can change. I mean, you look at Robert Downey Jr., right? People forget now because he's Iron Man, but it was like, dude, that guy's life was in rubbles.
Yeah.
He was like getting arrested and doing crack and like with hookers, and it was just like, whoa, this guy's Iron Man now, and he's a hero, literally a hero again. Like there is space in Hollywood for a lot of change, and I think it's got to be a hell of a task to take that on. I'm curious what you see most, or what patterns you see most in people that are living that life.
Yeah, I mean, really, a lot of people come to me because they want to get to another level of success.
Okay.
And
is it really about success though?
No, it really isn't. Like, and the name of my business is Soul Aligned Success Inc.
Okay.
And I believe that when we are aligned to our soul, to to the divine God, universe, whatever you want to call it, label it as, and we embody it here in the body, on the earth, we become more fulfilled as a result. And so my whole premise of all the work that I do with these leaders and influencers, celebrities, whoever it is creating that soul-aligned success, is realizing and recognizing that success is not just defined by the parts you're playing, the scripts you're writing, or the business you have, or how much money is in your bank account. Those things are important, but they're really extensions of who you are and how you're showing up day to day.
Yeah.
And, I do that foundational work with people. I mean, there definitely is, because my work is very spiritual. I do a lot of trance channeling work, intuitive work in my coaching, in my teaching, when I'm speaking. There has to be some sort of a resonance, or they've already been on the path of spiritual growth or personal development where there is that connection. Like, because some of the things I do are fairly out there for, everyday people that have never heard of this kind of stuff. But with people in Hollywood, that tends to be the thing that they come to me first and want to focus on. And there's a gap. Like, I see this pattern over and over again, and it's something that's unplanned. It's like, I'm here and I really want to get there, V. I know I'm meant for this. I know I have to get my film out there, this, that, whatever it is. And I help them in that gap, close that gap, so that, this future, this vision, these dreams that they have that are really, truly most fulfilling and inspiring, like their heart and soul's desires, become their reality, or at least they're on the way to making them their reality.
Yeah. How often do you see that someone's, I'd say, goals or desires are misaligned? Has that happened a lot? 'Cause, I mean, you can't simply be like, hey, I want to do this thing, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, that's bullshit, right? Or you're doing it for the wrong reasons, and then they completely change paths, like a different relationship with that. Does that happen often?
It does. I mean, right now, currently, when I look at the people that I'm working with, I would say that most people are pretty clear on where they're going. But in the past, I've had a lot of people who are trying to live out other people's projections of, who they think they should be, or they went down the path of having a certain kind of career or business, and it's not true for them anymore. I mean, there are most people, I think, on some level are walking around out of alignment because they don't know who they are. And it's nobody's fault. I mean, we live in a culture where we are programmed from the time we are 3-4 years old onward to go into a system, an educational system. And yes, education's important, But we are basically being programmed from the time we are kids to figure out what we're going to do with our lives versus without even really knowing who we are. Like,
Yeah.
you don't go to school to know who you are, to, allow your true expression or your creativity to really come out. I mean, we're put into boxes,
Yeah.
unless you went to some special school.
Yeah.
The regular, educational system just trains kids to become, people working in jobs in society.
I totally resonate with that, and I think that's something that played a role. And I think we always give the past generations a hard time.
Yeah.
And I think every generation does that. It's like, oh, but they were doing the best they could, right? There was a time in the Industrial Revolution when schools were, getting established, that learning how to operate in that style of life was essential for you staying alive.
Totally.
Right. This is also pre-vaccines and people were dying of plagues and shit.
Yeah.
But it makes sense that it was so essential that it stayed a part of our narrative. I mean, even summer breaks during school don't make any fucking sense at all. Like, we're gonna go work with our family on the crops.
Right.
Like, what's going on here? Why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't ever a lot of times as a collective don't think about, well, why are we doing this? And even if you do, it's like, well, then what do you do about it? Right? How do we change something that's that deeply ingrained?
Mm-hmm.
But and I think oftentimes the mistake is that we villainize the system and then rebel against the system.
Yeah.
Or we felt so resentful for the fact that we got put into a box that then we go fucking manic. I had a buddy who followed all the rules and was successful, and he was like my grounded, like, normal friend. He was a semi-pro volleyball player, had like a good corporate job, he was doing his things, and I swear to God, this guy lost his fucking shit. Like, he went to Costa Rica once and was like so disillusioned by everything that you couldn't even get him back on the ground.
Yeah.
For like 2 years, and I'm like, dude, you were my friend that, like, I was the one that was kind of out there, and now we can't even have a relationship anymore because you for some reason resent me for something that I didn't do. And I'm like, it was this really crazy thing, and I'm like, I feel so bad that the system failed you so in such a big way.
Yeah.
And it was so strange, and a lot of the work that I try and do is through helping people take the whole thing less seriously, because I think if you get wrapped up in how much tension there is in it, it can be it's almost just hard to deal with. There's so much there. There's so much there.
Listen,
and
I
you're living a reactive life. It's like you're reacting to your, either you're doing what your parents told you to do, or you're doing the complete opposite, and you never find the middle, and you're just bouncing. You're like a fucking pinball machine, just kind of slapping off of things that make noise until you find somewhere to go. And it's a trip, man. It's not an easy. Being a seeker, even a mild seeker, not a super seeker, but just trying to do something, just like casually seeking new things, can be a trip.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think here's what I want to say. Everybody has a role in this world, and there's going to be people who are going to be seekers because on some level they're meant to seek something, or to wake up to something, or to discover more of themselves and go down those rabbit holes, or have these transcendental experiences. And there's going to be people who listen to this and are like, this is such crap, like,
yeah, of course,
just fucking go to get your job, get your money, go home and live your life, do the things that make you happy. I think that we all have our roles in this world, and there's going to be some people who are going to be all about, I want to impact and make influence. I want to wake this planet up and create, some big change in the world. And there's going to be people who don't give a shit about it. And it's like, one is not better than the other, really. Like, there really is no wrong or right in that.
Yeah.
It's like we're all doing the things that I think on some level we're here to do. I believe that when people like your friend, start to wake up to themselves, to what's true and what really is reality, and they start to go and explore and start to connect to themselves in a different way, I mean, there's something that catalyzes that.
Yeah.
People who are not interested in this will poo-poo it, as I say, until they're ready.
I think sometimes life, I feel like in that situation of somebody who stepped in and was almost like just frustrated with everything.
Yeah.
Is that he hadn't been conditioned to handle what he was about to step into.
Yeah.
Right. It's like when you have like some shit go on, or you were, thrown in the public eye early, which is its own sort of wild experience. And then I had my own set of experiences where it's like I was pretty. The reality had been in question for me for a long time. It's like, well, and I bring up my parents and their addiction in a way that it wasn't, I don't have any resentment towards them anymore. I've worked through that, and I think they're both fucking awesome. but it didn't make sense to me as if I
Yeah.
like a lot of life didn't make sense. So I was conditioned early on for things to handle things not making sense and that just being the way the world was. So I could let go of what I need to let go of and I could focus on what I could actually do something about. And we live in this community that's a lot of like people that want to wake up the world to different levels of consciousness, and that gets projected onto me because I talk about spiritual stuff sometimes kind of as much as I make fun of it. And it's like, "Oh yeah, you're like waking people up." And I'm like, "Bro, that is not what I'm out here trying to do." And I'm not going to take on that role. That's not my thing.
Right.
That doesn't even get me excited thinking about it or even talking about it.
Yeah.
But sometimes people, like especially people in that role, want more of that in the world, and then I think people then become validated by claiming that that's their purpose, and that's just as out of alignment as working a 9-to-5 job.
I 100% agree. I
It's
absolutely agree.
trendy to try to raise the consciousness of the planet.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people want to jump on that, and
Yeah.
want to, and it becomes another identity.
Yeah.
It becomes another thing that people focus on to get validated, to feel important, to feel like, oh my God, there is something bigger than me that I'm here to do, and not are like legitimately still lost. Like they still don't know who they are. They don't know what they're here to do. I firmly believe like we become more awakened when we are actually expressing ourselves in the most authentic way possible. And if that means you go to your job 9 to 5 and you fucking love the shit out of what you're doing
Yeah.
and you enjoy it and it just lights you up, great.
Yeah.
And if that means that you're, an actor or coach or whatever it is, or a speaker or, a trampolinist, I have no idea why I even thought of that.
I know that's people. If you're a full-time trampolinist,
That's
you, dude.
rad.
Yeah. Go you.
Yeah, it's about being you. I think at the end of the day, it's like, who are you when you strip off all the layers of conditioning and programming and projection and, what society told you to be, your background, your lineage, all those things. Like, who are you? And that's an ongoing, exploration. It doesn't end.
Yeah.
And it's expressing ourselves moment to moment in the things that bring us joy. And I think that to me is where we're headed.
Yeah.
If we can be role models of like living our lives in a place that feels aligned and joyful and authentic and true, and we're in integrity with that, like that really is fulfillment, right? It's like that is fulfilling for individuals.
It is, and I want to bring that back to you a little bit here because you get on stages, you talk, and you use the word trans channeling a couple times, and we've obviously got to address the elephant in the room here.
Yeah.
So, but what you do, and I've seen you do it, and the reason that you're sitting on this show with me is because we happened to sit across from each other at a dinner one time, and I really resonated with what you had to say.
Thank you.
And I want to think about how that form of expression, right? Of hey, I'm gonna channel for groups and people and individuals and work in like that feels very authentic to you, and you couldn't resonate with people in the way that you do. I don't believe you could do that without it being truly authentic to who you are.
Agreed.
Right. So, but that being said, nothing's free in my opinion. Like nothing. You want to live an authentically like fueled life. Cool. There's a cost to that.
Of course.
And I'm curious what that cost is for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very complex path.
Yeah.
Especially going into the media more and also wanting to work with the masses while still working in Hollywood and even being in Hollywood and conveying this. I mean, my publicist, we've spent months really working on how, to pitch me and how I want to be represented in the world that's authentic and in integrity.
Pitching yourself is one of the hardest fucking things.
Oh.
I need a public. I'm trying to write those emails right now, and I'm like, what? Who am I? Even I'm having an existential crisis trying to pitch myself to be on other podcasts.
I mean, it's like we're so close to ourselves. It's like it's just you don't know almost how to language it. But I mean, initially when it happened, I have to be honest with you. Like I've been a channel my whole life, but I didn't close my eyes. I didn't sound like a different kind of being or person. I wasn't saying that I was channeling, galactic, beings, light beings, or any of that. I mean, it was sitting in conversation, and I would just laser in on something and say something that would resonate so deeply for someone and hit them at the core of their being. But this trance channeling thing was like a whole other level of growth, and it was extremely unexpected. I mean, when it happened, And it happened over the series of probably about 4 or 5 months. But when I actually went into trance state for the first time in a workshop,
Yeah. And how old were you at this time?
this was just a few years ago.
Okay.
So this is not a long time ago. I came out of the experience completely embarrassed and humiliated. And like I was in a room full of people who were into all this shit. So
Yeah.
like, I mean, and I've been connecting. I mean, I could see people's deceased loved ones. I, would be able in the past to put my hands on people's bodies and see what's going on. I can tap into people and see what's, like I'm an intuitive. I did readings at the beginning of my career. So
Yeah.
it's not like this is I'm new to this experience. But it was really scary at first for me because it was so unexpected. I never ever thought that my career, my mission would include something like this. And I mean, a great example of, trance channeling, if there's anybody who's listening who's familiar, is Esther Hicks, who channels Abraham. Paul Selig is another great example. Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar.
Yeah.
Some of the bigger names, if you're into this type of work.
I can personally vouch for Paul Selig and how
Yeah.
incredible that man is.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's awesome. And his work is incredible, and it's powerful, and it's needed right now. You know, like people are getting a hold of those texts.
His method is much different than yours.
Yeah.
In the way that he goes about what he's doing. I think his is more towards this text and towards working with groups. But I think that it's really aligned for you to do what you're doing when you have so much knowledge of that industry, right?
Yeah,
that you're in.
yeah. And I mean, I still do events for, people everyday people too,
Yeah.
So I'm not, isolating, the masses. Like I still love doing those events. And I'm also, happen to be really drawn at this point in my career to bringing this work into Hollywood in a bigger way and helping them to really awaken and, live their most fulfilling lives. So,
but you were in this room. So you're in this room. This thing happens. You go into a trance state. And you come out, you're like embarrassed. You said you're embarrassed as fuck.
Literally. I mean, if you witness, if I explain the whole thing, I mean, it sounds really crazy. Like, I mean, it literally, I felt like I was plugged into an electrical socket. I was standing. My whole body was shaking and moving. I felt like my feet weren't even on the ground.
And were you talking?
Well, at first we were doing these. Have you seen the OA?
Yeah.
Those, like, we were doing like bodily movements at first, and then all of a sudden it becomes like almost like you're in a trance of doing this stuff. And then the woman facilitating was, inviting the energy and increasing the energy in the room, that all of a sudden it was like I'm speaking in another language, a light language. And it was like my whole personality was completely pushed to the back of my head. I know.
It sounds a lot like the OA, actually.
Yeah, and then this like energy drops in, and this voice comes through and does this like activation for the group, and it was short, but it was powerful. I mean, it was so visceral and so palpable when I was in that state and in the room. And then I, came out of trance, and I dropped to the ground, and I was just like, what the fuck just happened? And I don't want to, I want to hide right now.
Yeah.
It was like, literally, like, I wanted to just run out of the space because I didn't know what had happened. I was the only person that had happened to in that way.
Yeah.
So
in that room?
In that room.
Okay.
Yeah, there was another gentleman in there, a friend of mine, who was already trance channeling, and his had come a little bit sooner than mine, but the two of us were the ones that got activated. And we had been at this retreat in Mount Shasta in November, and that was in March when that happened, but the previous November. And that's when that whole kind of galactic stuff started to awaken within me. And so, yeah, I mean, it was crazy. And the thing I feared the most was telling my parents.
Yeah.
Like, I've taken my parents on a really wild ride, okay? Like, I'm an only child, grew up in the suburbs. Like, my dad worked for the utilities company for a gas company. Like, he thought that he would get me a job. I would, be married by 25, pop out a few kids. Like, I'd live 20 minutes from them. Like, my parents really were priming me for a pretty normal life. And at 14, I was like, nope, I'm going in this industry. Nope, I'm going to be this like intuitive healer, life coach, energy person, trance channeler. I'm channeling aliens. I mean, it's still for them hard. It's fucking crazy. My poor parents. I love you guys if you end up listening to this so much.
God damn. That's so funny. I bet they're tripping a little bit.
Oh, yeah. My mom still has a hard time.
I'm sure she does. My mom has a hard time with me, too. But she gets it more now. So that happens.
Yeah.
That whole thing happens. And does that kind of open this pathway up? Like, what is
Yeah,
that? So
yeah,
then all of a sudden, can you do it at will? Does it happen like randomly? Like, what's going on
Yeah,
there?
so I mean, I was facilitating a group, a women's program at the time, and working with several private clients, and literally it felt like my whole world flipped upside down. I mean, the trance channeling work, I always say when I'm interviewed about this, it like really pushes the limits of what the physical body is able to do, because you're basically bringing in a frequency that's not from here, like a energy, a vibration in the body that doesn't feel or operate the way we do, like how I'm operating in this state right now. It is completely different. And it's hard to describe, articulating energy and what it's like in the body, but the nervous system can only hold so much energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's entrained to a certain level. Most of us are operating out of fight or flight a lot. And, to be able to hold these energies without shaking or like, passing out or, it's like literally bringing heat through the body and the body holding this energy, containing it so that the messages and this guidance can come through. That's not from here.
Yeah.
Really. It's like it's from another level of consciousness. And it was so hard on my body. I mean, so hard on my body.
Yeah.
Like, just that alone was hell at times. But I also agreed, in meditation, in my, connection to these particular energies coming through, that I would do this work if it would help people and if it was pristine. And, and I would not be omitted from this, equation, meaning I'm not just going to go out in the world and people just want to hear these guides, this energy talk through me. It's like I want to also be grounded and be in my human experience and share my wisdom and knowledge, just as like we're sitting here having this conversation. And yeah, I mean, literally, it was like the energy that would come through, it just lasers in on all of your bullshit, where you're not in integrity, where you're out of alignment. I mean, all the things that I've been teaching, but it took my teachings to a whole other level.
Yeah.
And by June of that year, I had facilitated a retreat out in Sedona, and I came back and I was like, I'm done with this iteration of my business. And I was doing a lot of divine feminine leadership work, like leadership work with women, empowering women, all that, like the deep transformational work. And I was like, I'm done. I felt complete. I was like, I'm ready for the next iteration of what's to come. And in that time of me literally letting go of everything, of what had been, I got this guidance that I was going to create these, channeling events called Evenings with V. And that was how this event was birthed initially.
Yeah.
And I had, people come to my house, close friends in the community would personally invite them over, 10, 12 people sitting in my living room. And I remember the first time doing it for them. And then I started to, do these operatic tones and this light language and these transmissions. And it was like so smooth and clear. And then I came out, they were all like, wow, it's like you've been doing this your whole life. It was incredible. It was powerful. The messages, all like, you got to do this. You got to make this into an event. And, that's how that was birthed. And I've been doing these events probably a few times a year. And online events, and I do virtual live streams with them, and then I channel, for my clients, all that. But yeah, it's been wild, but it changed everything. I mean, the entire trajectory of my life and my business went in a whole other direction.
And you had to let go of what you were doing.
Yeah.
In order to
Constant.
move into that.
I mean, the biggest thing that's been the most liberating and the scariest has been the level of trust and surrender, like the level of which I've had to let go and dissolve my ideas of what, my career should be like, and like literally allowing, the soul, the spirit of my business and my mission, like really show me how it wanted to be expressed.
Huh. It's funny. We talked a lot for a while before the podcast. I wanted to get a good grasp on what you do, and something that just came up for me that will dovetail off or piggyback off of that.
Yeah.
Is I feel personally in this whole thing that I do, and we've talked about my identity crisis with what I do, between being in personal development and being an entertainer, and that kind of tug of war that's always going on inside of me. And I think that there's a lot of insecurity around not adding value. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's really interesting, and hopefully that makes sense out of context on the show. But that's a really dynamic idea. It's like the feeling that you have to always be adding value in some way. And that's got to be a source of some of the insecurity there, because you're coming out of that not knowing where you're going to go, and how are you, if you really want to help and support people, how are you going to add value? I don't know, in doing what I do, when it's really at the end of the day, truly wanting to be an entertainer first, like, how does that add any fucking value to the world, right? And then having that, which logically doesn't make a ton of sense. You're like, well, you're not going to know until you do something about it. Until you do it,
yeah.
Because you may be completely off base. We don't know everything.
No, God no. Humans, we don't know everything, and we got to stop pretending that we do.
Yeah. And that's so. When you felt that shift, what was it like for you? When you said you had those first few events, like, what did that?
Yeah, I mean,
change for you?
It was exciting, and it was really scary for me. And then when I literally would see the reactions and responses and the feedback and the testimonials of what people were having through experiencing these channeling events, and I knew I was in the right place. It's like it felt so right. I felt so guided. And the funny thing is that when I said yes to doing it, I mean, the first thing that came in was like, well, how am I going to make money? Because I'm so used to, my business making me the income that I've been making, and I was doing really well in my business. I definitely was. There's nothing going wrong there. How am I, like, are people going to pay for this? But it brought me back to the first, the start of my career initially, because when I was in Canada, and I was starting to do coaching work and energy work, I remember the same things being said to me and in my head, like, who's going to pay for this shit? Who's going to come and give you money? And like, it was like, I felt and I was so supported by me taking that courageous, brave leap into this like unknown, uncertain, am I going to add value? Are people going to think I'm fucking nuts? Am I going to lose my credibility, with all the work I've been doing? Like, how am I going to be branded? How am I going to be positioned? How am I going to, like, all the how, and all the insecurity and the doubt and the worry. The minute I took that leap and I said yes to doing this and fully stepping into that and committing to it, man, you should have seen, like, the money was showing up. It was showing up in a different way. It felt more relaxed and more ease. I felt so supported. I mean, bottom line. And it was like it was almost like I was being initiated into a whole other level of trust and being provided for, and my expression. And it was like, it was safe for me to do it. But the safety sometimes can't come first. I think that's what we're so driven by as humans. Like, I want to know that I'm going to be safe.
Yes.
Right? Before I take the leap.
Absolutely. Something that I think about this too, in what I do now. So coaching, presenting to people, like, this is something I've done since I was since I was 20.
Yeah.
Like, pretty much. And I was even coaching, like, Little League before that. So that's been a big part of my being. And I think, I talk about this a lot, and this may be somewhere where I'm out of integrity, and I think integrity is flexible. A lot of times it's changing all the time. I wouldn't have noticed this until I notice it. But you talk about letting go, like, really fucking letting go of where you've been and what you've been doing. And I even see that in my life, where it's like, I haven't actually really let go.
Yeah.
I'm like holding on a little bit to, like, where was the source of relevance? Where was your source of validation?
Yeah.
Right? It was like in that, and maybe that value add. And it's to really fucking let go of it. It's because you can talk about it and you can language it and you can believe that you're letting go.
Yeah.
But you're just it's another flavor of ice cream, but it's still ice cream.
Right.
You went from Rocky Road to chocolate, but it's like, well, you're not really changed that much. It's just, there's just a little bit of a different flair to it. I think that's something that's really interesting, and I haven't really thought about it in that context before.
Well, I've been sharing my experiences, I've been thinking about you and being like, can you see yourself in this at all?
You could have done this before the show.
Like, really? It's all good. The breakthroughs can happen here.
Yeah. No, it's great. It is. And I mean, fuck, part of this show is just me talking about how I'm like hella insecure about a lot of different things that go on in my life and why I'm doing it, and I'm always questioning everything, especially myself. I'm harder on myself than I am on anybody else. People think I'm kind of a dick, so people assume that I'm like worse off to everybody else. But no, it's like, I think that's the place where a lot of people live, is letting go is terrifying.
It
Like
is.
really letting go. It's like, hey, all the things that you've been told are valuable about yourself, because people validate you on those things. Like
Right.
one of the biggest, one of the most challenging relationships in my life was with my old boss, and it was always like, how are you adding value? And he would tell you how you were valuable, not let you speak for how you valued yourself. And that's something I try and do, and that's the way that I try to lead, is like, well, how do you want to feel appreciated and valued? With my clients, it's the same thing. Like, let's get clear on how you even receive being valued and understood and admired. And I think mutual admiration in friendships and relationships is so fucking important.
Of course.
But you've got to be clear on that, because it doesn't necessarily happen by accident. And people are generally a lot more willing to share that and show you that if you can show them how to show you, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think that, like, when I mean, we have the definition of adding value is, especially in personal growth and, this kind of work that we do and have been doing, it's always about bettering somebody's life, like adding something that's going to be helpful for them. And I think that that's very limiting to a certain degree, because I believe, like, really when somebody is truly fulfilled and they're really being their authentic self and they're in integrity. I mean, I know it sounds so, like, abstract the way I'm framing it, and vague, but it's like, you add value just by being you. Like, I want to challenge all this bullshit that we keep hearing. You have to add value and do this, and you have to add value by doing that. It's like, I wasn't coming on here to say I'm going to add value to these people's lives. I know there's going to be something valuable for people, and there's going to be people that are going to say this is a total fucking waste of time.
Yeah.
Like, fuck this. I don't want to listen to this.
They probably quit listening when you said trans-channeling the first time.
Right, totally.
Or in the intro when I explained what you do.
Yeah.
So fuck them, because they can't hear you.
Yeah, totally. I'm not going to listen to this, So I think it's like, and you know what? I'm not caught up in those people. I bless them, like, cool. Like, we're not in resonance right now.
Yeah.
And we may never be in resonance, and that's totally cool. But I know the people that are going to listen are going to take something from it, because I'm just able to be me and be fully unabashedly open and willing to go there and share my life and share, this conversation with you and speak candidly, so.
Yeah. Which I think is, that's the reason that people listen to fucking podcasts like this, or Theo Vaughn, or fucking Joe Rogan, is like, the information is good, but that's not necessarily the reason people resonate with that kind of stuff.
People are information overload. If
Which
they
is
want
there's
information,
too
they
much.
can go read books. They can go on the internet.
Yeah, that's one of the most high value things I do. Speaking of adding value in my coaching program, is like, I just point you to the right resources that actually make sense to you, because there's so fucking much out there. It's like, you're a badass for this reason, you're a badass for that reason, 10x this, do that, and it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, how about just, like, look inward for 2 goddamn seconds?
Yeah.
And do you actually want to 10x anything besides, like, I don't know, maybe you want to 10x fucking chilling on the beach a little bit and, like, actually being present? That's a novel idea. How about you have better sex? That'd probably be, you're biologically geared for that. Maybe you should do that. Maybe we should invest a little bit into there, besides being constantly distracted. And then people that are getting paid by distracting you more with more distractions on how you can be better at something you don't actually give a fuck about. It's crazy. It's a crazy business. And that's something I want to talk to you about too, because you're in this place where, I mean, channeling and this type of work gets a lot of criticism, and something that a good friend of mine and I were talking about is how a lot of times what she's seeing, and she's in that women's empowerment kind of community, is that so often people leverage and take advantage of the victim story. You can have a really successful business playing to people's victimhood. Yeah. Do you see that a lot?
I mean, in this world, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of marketing copywriting, webinars, people on stages taking advantage of people's, vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
I think this is how a large portion of this business has become a $1 trillion business, coaching and all that, personal development. Dare I say it?
Yeah.
I'm in that industry. My perspective, is I have found a way of, like, really trusting and knowing that the people who come to me, if we're a fit, we both are going to know it. I look at it as, I'm here to guide you. I'm not here to tell you what to do. If I channel for you, I'm not meant to be made to be put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
I'm not a guru. I don't know everything, but I'm certainly going to do my best to fucking show up for you and be there for you and help you. And you got to want it more than I want that for you, and show up for yourself.
Exactly.
And I call it, when I work with clients, we're in a co-creative partnership.
Yeah.
We're working together to help you get to that next level. And, for me, it's not about looking at insecurities and using manipulation tactics, which, really is what happens in a lot of these events. Like, people are manipulated. It's more like, here's the invitation. This is what I can do. This is how I see I can help you.
Yeah.
If you want it, great. If you don't, that's okay too. Like, just be empowered in your yes or no.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be people who are not necessarily going to do the work, and they might still be in blame or victim. I see that too in this work.
And it's a process too. I think you got to live in that for a little while until something has to snap to get out of that kind of mentality. But that's the people that end up seeking help. Generally speaking, it's people that are having a hard time. It's not for lack of effort, oftentimes. And I actually take it somewhat personally when I feel like someone is giving somebody bullshit information.
Yeah.
Right? Because I try to make my stuff super attainable and super relatable and done so. And it's like, you're going to try and 10 extra business of bullshit. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like, it's very disillusioning too, because when you see behind the curtain, it's like, well, what's actually going on here? Like, these people really need help. And what you're concerned about is getting a second or third or fourth car, right? And it's like, that's what you get caught in that. You get caught in that story too. It's really wild.
It's a balance. You have to be in harmony with it. I mean, one of my former mentors, Jesse Elder,
you know Jesse?
Yeah, I worked with Jesse.
He's a really cool dude. Yeah.
I loved what he said years ago when I first came to LA. He said, money is a choice multiplier. And when I started to look at it that way, it was like, wow, like, if I have more money, then I'm able to, hire more people. I'm employing them to be a part of my mission. I'm able to do more things. I'm able to impact more people around the world. It's nice to have nice things, but that's not the end all or be all. It's like, you want to be working with people who walk the walk and talk the talk.
It's so fucking funny you say that. So it just happened to be in my journal, or like one of my journals is sitting right here, and I was writing down like business goals, and it's talking about my revenue goals for the Realness Media. And I said, I have why and how. That's how I split things up. And it was like to hire more people.
Yeah.
That was like number one. It's like, has nothing to do with me. It's like, I just want more people that are involved in this, because it feels like it's a great catalyst.
Well,
for
you have
people
more support, then
yeah.
it frees you up to do more things for you to be in more of your expression. I look at it
Exactly.
entirely. My next money goal for me is because I need to hire way more people.
Yeah, exactly.
So that I don't have to be doing all these little things that exhaust me, so that I can really take care of myself and go out and start to see more people and do more events. You know?
And it's a crazy game to play, to be involved in people's lives, and it's not an easy one. And as we've discussed, there's a lot of that like victim capitalization.
Yeah.
It's sad, but and that's one thing that I hope people can take from this is like, look at all of this stuff. We're sitting here talking about trans channeling and being an intuitive, and these things are relatively out there, right? You've got to look at all of this shit with a critical lens.
Yeah.
Right? Just because someone's speaking the language, like, you've got to look at everything you do.
Be discerning.
Very discerning with any of this personal development shit. Because if someone's trying to tell you they have the answers, like, they're full of shit. Thing number one, right?
Yeah.
If I think it's so important and so crucial in the world where there's media and distraction everywhere to understand that there's a lot of people that are going to try and take your power away and leverage the fuck out of that, and it'll make you feel good in the short term. But the best thing you can do is understand you have your own answers. Maybe you don't have the best access to them or the best perspective on them, and that's what I feel that I do, is like just give a little bit of a better perspective for people. But they're yours. And when you sort them out and you get the pattern, and you learn how to ask yourself the right questions, and you can do the right things, and you can see. And I think that's one thing you do so well is with the intuitive work, is like help people see themselves clearly for maybe the first time fucking ever, and get out of that reactive place. Well, then it's like, okay, cool. Now I have access to it. I have access to the thing I didn't have access to or didn't know was even there. Right.
Right. I mean, I don't want my clients to be dependent on me forever. I honestly really don't. My whole thing is and I wrote a post about this actually on social media.
Yeah.
The other day about
where all the information lives.
It's like my job is to help empower you to have your own authority, your own inner authority, to like really know who you are and to increase your self-awareness so you make more empowering decisions, which lead to a more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
And, I always say this, even at all of my events, about when I'm channeling, if I'm working with clients, like, I'm not a god. They're not gods. We're not here to have all the answers. If I say something that doesn't resonate as truth for you, or they say something that doesn't resonate as truth for you, throw it in the garbage can.
Yeah.
Because it's not that we're the end all, be all and know it alls.
Yeah.
And I think that is we're shifting, I think, in consciousness, even in this work, that a lot of people who've not been operating out of integrity and who've been doing this dance of I'm going to manipulate people and take advantage of people who are vulnerable, that shit's on the way out. Because one of the things that and we were talking about this earlier, it's like, for a long time, we've seen the distribution of wealth go to people who are not in integrity. We've seen people who are in power, who have influence, who are well-known household names, actually be really out of integrity.
Yeah.
And now I believe we're entering slowly this like next era where wealth and integrity have to go hand in hand. And people are starting to wake up to this. Like, look in the media of all the people, all the scandals, all these people in Hollywood and who are outside of Hollywood who've done some pretty shady things, and it's all coming to the surface. Like, it's all becoming revealed. Like, people are becoming really good bullshit detectors.
Yeah, we have to be.
Yeah.
And I think we're because of the over influx of media, like, you just have to be extremely discerning in what's going on, and you almost have to, as fucked up as it is, you kind of have to always have second thoughts until you can really feel into and have some intuition on what's true for you and what's not.
Right.
And it takes. I actually was writing something about this today. It like takes learning how to say no to the bullshit and the distractions and all the stuff to actually get access to your own intuition.
Precisely. Yeah.
It doesn't just happen. It's a skill like anything else, and you're gonna fuck it up at some point, a handful of times. It's okay.
Well,
right?
and that kind of leads me to the point that I wanted to make a little bit earlier when you were bringing up the thing about, people in the personal development industry taking advantage of and all that. I mean, if we look at from an even big, I'm going to go a little woo on you guys for a second.
Bring it on, dude.
Sometimes those experiences for those people end up being their greatest lessons. Sometimes like everything is serving on some level for us in our development and our growth. It just depends on the perspective in which we're seeing it. Somebody with self-awareness is going to say, shit, I just got duped by this person who said they were going to do what they were going to do with me and they didn't. And I paid all this money. Well, what are the lessons in that? A person who doesn't have awareness is going to stay in the victim triangle and they're just going to blame, you know? So every experience is there to help us to evolve and grow. Like, just like I said at the beginning, we're all playing a role. So even those people who are, these spiritual teachers or personalities or personal growth experts who are not operating in integrity and are doing the things that we've been talking about, and people are experiencing that, I mean, there's going to be some people who are really going to grow from that experience, and they are going to become more discerning. And there's going to be people who are just going to stay in, their same patterns. So we all are playing a role with each other. We're all here to help each other grow and evolve in some way. It just depends on how we're looking at it. And one of the things I love to empower people, it's like everything in your life is serving you. You're creating things in your life. You are powerful. You're more magnificent than you think you are. So how can you look at the things that aren't working well and are working well and really take responsibility for it? And really learn from those things. And if things are shit, then you got to take responsibility for that too.
Yeah, and there's a difference in responsibility and blame.
Yeah.
Or fault, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a fine line there. And it's like, if your life is shit, maybe it's not your fault that things shook out the way they did, but it is your responsibility to do something about them.
Exactly.
And you have to look at it that way. There's literally no other way to approach it that's going to do anything besides help or hurt you, right? It's like that's the only way you can move anywhere positive is taking responsibility.
Absolutely.
That's fucking step number one.
Yeah.
And ownership, or whatever verb or whatever word you want to throw on it. So, man, I think that's super profound. And in looking at this whole thing, this whole landscape, like, where do you think that people can on a mass scale, like, where can people start? They want to make some change, right? Like, fuck, I get it. I want to take responsibility. I want to live more authentically. Like, what's step one in that whole process?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's so subjective because one person might say, well, I'm feeling really drawn toward yoga, or one person might say, I'm feeling really drawn to going into therapy. I think that getting support on some level, I mean, I know I'm really biased in that because I'm somebody who does this for a living and, sells support in that sense, encourages support, but I wouldn't be where I am today being able to do what I do if I didn't have a lot of support in my life. And I think that people have to get really curious and be open about that. And it's like, if you feel that desire, that fire to make some changes, to create some shifts, to really take responsibility for your life, then you got to look at the ways, like, what's going to be the path that's going to help me to get that result? Is it going to be maybe reading a book first, and going into the self-help section at Barnes & Noble, or, perusing Amazon for
Yeah.
self-help books? Is it going to be going to therapy or getting a coach or seeing a healer or going to even an intuitive or something? Like
Yeah.
what's the thing that you're feeling most drawn toward? And what I really want to emphasize for people, because we tend to think like, oh, I got to take these big leaps and make massive changes right away in my life. It's like, no, take a baby step. Like
Yeah.
maybe the baby step is just journaling your thoughts.
That's huge. That shit
Right?
changed my life. One line, or it's 5 little mini lines a day. They call it a line a day journal. It's sitting right over there.
Yeah.
That journal, I'm 5 years into it. It's a 5-year journal. I'm
Oh,
on
that's
the year
cool.
5. Shit changed my life. Like I journal every day now, and journaling is my favorite self practice. But that I've gotten more access to my own intuition by putting what I feel, experience, and on paper.
Yeah.
And I can't say there's one thing I've done. I mean, I would even say at a higher level than psychedelics. But damn, it's something that you're doing it in your. That's one thing about psychedelics or going to do ayahuasca, which I'm hosting a retreat. I honestly think that's a very valid practice to go and experience. But putting in your own conscious everyday mind, putting your thoughts, feelings, experiences on a page and literally making them real. Like this is my real thought, and you'll see things in there that are like, well, that's complete bullshit, but I think it all the time.
Yeah.
Or hell, that like really resonates deeply. That's true to me. That's something I can run with. But it helps so much to see them.
I agree.
Even journaling about where you want to go to get help.
Yeah.
It's a
I
good
think
idea.
and it's free, like you don't have to pay for something right away, because it's not going to be accessible for everybody to be able to invest in themselves on some level for, support. But like, how can you support yourself right now? Like, what are the things that you've been, saying you want to give to yourself? What kind of self-care, practices or, can you start to do? Like, maybe it's just even getting to bed a little earlier. That might help you become more, connected to yourself. Like, I don't know. Like, for everybody, it's different depending on the stage that they're at in their development. But I mean, I know the one thing for sure at the end of the day, it's like being able just even to sit with yourself on a cushion or a chair with no distraction, no screen, no music, no nothing. And just be able to sit with all of the like thoughts pouring through you, feeling uncomfortable, feeling like you want to get up and run, like what, like just being able to train yourself to even sit with everything that's going on inside of you is pretty powerful too, and then things just kind of spiral, because what we ask for, we receive on some level. So if we're like, universe, God, whatever, life, I'm ready to start making some transformation happen. Show me what the tools are to help me to make that happen.
Yeah.
Just even that declaration, that affirmation, asking that for ourselves, whether you call it a prayer or an intention or an affirmation or just a statement that you're saying out loud, a question that you're asking, you're going to be led to something one way or another.
It's so funny. So the girl I'm dating now literally said earlier that she manifested me, apparently.
Ah,
I was like, yeah.
I love these stories.
She was like, no, I literally asked for you. And I was like, cool. I was just over here hanging out.
Did she stalk you on your podcast?
No, that's not how it went down.
Okay.
Her assistant reached out to be on the show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then we ended up getting connected through all the podcast world. But
Beautiful.
the podcast brings things, I get to have really awesome conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. This whole podcast thing has done a lot of different fun things for me. Helped me with my relationship with my mom. Like there's been weird little things, like this the ability to put myself out there, and that's one thing I think people, they can let us know by leaving a review on iTunes. But
just
people like about it is
that
yeah,
in there.
No big deal, subtle.
Leave a review, guys.
Yeah.
Come on, subscribe.
Hit me with that 5 stars, share it with your friends on Instagram. No, but it's a fun way to process things and put things into words, and that's something I've enjoyed doing and enjoy sharing with people, in a way that's vulnerable and not in a vulnerable in like a trendy way, but it was all done by accident and kind of on purpose. It was like I had to do the things, but what it turned out to be was not what I planned for it to be.
Of course.
Yeah, so it's
the best things in life happen like 100%, that, don't they?
But you've got to create the space, and now I'm getting kind of by you mostly, like pushed into like how much more space can you create? How much can you actually let go? Because I feel like I've done that on a small scale and gotten more resilient. And I think resilience and resourcefulness are something that I have a high level of just based on experience. But I'm curious what can life be with a little bit more openness and just saying, all right, like fucking go do the thing you've been talking about doing that is gonna fucking work for you if you just do it.
Yeah, sometimes it is about just taking that action step, like doing the thing that's going to conquer all the bullshit.
Yeah.
The fears, the stories, the worries, anxieties. It's like, yeah, there's a time. I think so many people in personal development get so stuck in, oh my God, I need to like process this and I need to look at it more clearly before I take the action.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes just taking the action is the thing that you need to do to like erase all of that chatter.
Yeah.
And that resistance.
Like believing you need to be in process is the distraction.
Yeah. And it can keep you in that like endless loop, right? Of like never taking action and doing the things. And like I love what you said about, really letting go and creating space. I mean, that's a huge thing. If you don't have the space in your life for the things that you're really desiring or wanting, they're not going to come in. There's no room for it.
You got to create this energy vacuum of like, what if you're constantly running around in a circle, then there's not really much anywhere for you to go.
Yeah.
You don't know where you're going. You're just chasing your own tail. But it's if you can like take a second. Okay, where am I most distracted? What can I let go of? Like, fuck, the other day I purged my Instagram. I unfollowed 650 people.
Wow.
And it's the best thing ever. I'm like, I have so much more mental space now. So I can just stay in my head longer and bounce around ideas and overthink everything, even more than I was before. But it's crazy. But little things like that, and just again, it's little steps. I had somebody reach out the other day. It was like, I just never can seem to accomplish anything because I always fail over and over again. I'm like, dude, you're not like, are you making your bed? Is your room organized? Is your little maybe you live with other people, but it's like, can you control what you have and like get it in order, and then do that with your fucking mind and do that with your body, and then like go for a fucking walk, do some push-ups, like do something, right?
Yeah.
And that's all things you can do. Did you do what you said you were gonna do? Did you say what you mean? Be as honest as you possibly can, and then fucking do what you say you're gonna do.
Yeah, and
It's a great
be
place to
okay
start.
with making mistakes.
Yeah.
There is no mistake. Really, it's just, okay, I didn't do it. I've got another moment in my life to be able to do it. There's another breath that's been gifted to me by life to be able to take that action, to make that next step.
And if you act honestly and do, like I said, stay in integrity, personal integrity with yourself, the best possible outcome will happen.
Yeah.
And you may not have complete context on it, but the outcome that should happen will happen if you're fucking honest and integrity with yourself and say what you fucking mean.
It seems just so simple,
It's so simple.
It's like so rare in this world.
It is. Well, Vanessa, it's been an hour. We crushed this.
Wow.
It's been fun. Thank you so much for coming to hang out. Where can everybody find you at?
You can visit me at vanessapetronelli.com, and I'm on Instagram at Vanessa Petronelli, and then Facebook at VPetronelli.
Perfect.
So.
I'll put all that stuff in the description and the show notes, and we'll see you around. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's the show, everybody. Hopefully it's just as weird as I promised it would be. I like to deliver on my promises. I like to under-promise and over-deliver. And I like doing this. Make sure if you enjoy the show, head over there to iTunes. Leave a 5-star review, please. Some kind words would be great. Rate, review, subscribe. I think that's what the podcast hosts say these days. And if you think this show would land with one of your friends, share it. Let them know what's up. I mean, if I loved a podcast as much as I'm assuming you love this podcast, then I would probably go around like my office, my friend groups. If I was at like a group dinner with a bunch of people, I would just gather everyone's phones. I would subscribe everyone to The Realness, and I would leave a 5-star review and some kind words on everyone's phone that I came in contact with. If you're on Bumble or Tinder or Grindr or Hinge, literally every date that you go on, you should be subscribing them to The Realness and leaving a review with their phone. Now, maybe that's against iTunes terms of service, but who gives a fuck? We're going to do it anyways. Grab phones, leave reviews, subscribe. They'll thank you later. This guy you may have randomly slept with that you met on Tinder might accidentally find out, get a notification that a new Realness podcast is out, and he may not even know what the Realness podcast is, but he might listen to this show on accident one day because you came into his life and reform his douchey ways and actually be someone that's worth being in a relationship with. You just never know what can happen downstream when you do great things with good energy. And it's for all of us. Do it for all of us. Love you guys. If you make it to the end of the show, you've got a special place in my heart. Much love. Hugs and kisses. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
While you